Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. My name's Todd Zagoric, and I'm the service coordinator today. My pronouns are he, his, and him. And I'm also a member of the Board of Trustees. So if you got any thoughts or comments or complaints about anything that goes on around this place, feel free to tell Jeff Asher. Please silence your phones if you haven't done that yet. This morning we're going to begin our month of reflections on the theme of hope. And today Reverend Tony will reflect on what hope is and what it isn't, and how hope is connected to action. You might have woken up this morning already exhausted just by the thought of the upcoming holidays, or maybe you arrived here barely able to contain your excitement just at the thought of the upcoming holidays. But however you are feeling today, it's good that you're here. There's a place for you here. It's good to be together. So please relax. Feel free to laugh, to cry, to share, or to be silent. However you need, whatever you need to do, and however you need to be, you're welcome here. As we gather this morning, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded homeland of the Pugussit people. Let's start before anything else by saying hello to the folks joining us online and to each other here in the fellowship hall. Thank you. Just a few announcements. The first is that, remember, today is the day to bring back your mitten tree gifts. And as you do that, where's Luann? There's Luann. Please remember to check in with Luann because she's keeping track. She's making a list. She's checking it twice. And you don't want to be on her naughty list. Okay, good. Let's see. We've also got, next Sunday is the winter solstice celebration, and the Sunday after that is our pageant. And on the 24th of December at 4 p.m. is the Christmas Eve service. And today, after the service, there's a holiday party where we will be literally decking the hall. I think I saw a tree on my way in. And today at 4 o'clock right here is a very special edition of Music at the Ridge. It's a benefit concert featuring the Walkabout Clearwater Chorus with David and Jacob Burns. And both the chorus and David and Jacob Burns have performed many times with Pete Seeger in the past. And they've been, for decades, literally decades, they've been singing out for social justice. And surprisingly, after decades, their voices are still intact and strong. Amazingly. Some of them? Okay, I'm sure all of them are. Anyway, this is an important benefit concert. 100% of the proceeds will go to Danbury Unites for Immigrants to help, our immigrant neighbors who are under so much of a threat right now. So it'll be a lot of fun, and it's support for a really worthy and needful cause. $25 per person, by the way. Well, as you know, we make this time and place holy simply by being here together, and we start with lighting our flaming chalice as a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist traditions. So please join me in the words of our chalice lighting affirmation. And Zella, I believe, is going to light the chalice for us. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life. Thank you. And now, please rise in body or spirit for our hymn of welcome. Deck the Halls, number 235 in the gray hymnal. For the, I don't know, the one or two people who might not already know the words.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, la 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 la. Follow now, merry measure, la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, la 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 la. Hail the new, la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, la 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 la.
So good to be together. Let's say the words of our children's affirmation. They're on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. And this morning we have a picture book, so this will be on the screen. Little Mole Finds Hope by Glennis Nellis. Little Mole was sad. He lay in his burrow deep underground and put his hand in his paws. Little Mole, whatever's wrong? Asked Mama. I just don't know, Mama, sniffed Little Mole, but I don't feel good inside. I'm sad. What you need is hope, Mama said. Hope? What's hope, Mama said. What's hope, Little Mole asked. Where do I find it? Come with me, Mama said, as she took hold of Little Mole's paw. Sometimes hope is hiding in the darkness. Sometimes it's hard to see, but it's always there. You just have to find it. Mama led her son gently out of the dark burrow, up toward the light. But on their way out of the tunnel, Mama stopped. Do you see this bulb, Little Mole? She asked. Mama pointed to a bulb squashed in the dark earth. It was brown, wrinkled, and lifeless. It's dead, Mama, said Little Mole. No, my dear, Mama whispered softly. This bulb is not dead. Sometime soon it will feel the warmth of the sun. It will begin to grow and push its way out of the deep, cold earth. One day this bulb will become a beautiful yellow daffodil. Close your eyes, Little Mole. Can you see it dancing in the wind? Yes, Mama, cried Little Mole. I see it, I see it. That is hope, Mama said. Little Mole and Mama reached the top of the burrow where the sun was shining. Look up, little mole, Mama said. What do you see? Little mole looked up. He saw woodpeckers sitting in the trees, but the branches were bare. They stretched out like skeleton bones silhouetted against the sky. They're dead, Mama, said Little Mole. No, my dear, Mama whispered softly. The trees are not dead. One day soon, buds will appear, and these branches will be covered in bright green leaves. Close your eyes, Little Mole. Can you see them dancing in the wind? Yes, Mama, cried Little Mole. I see them, I see them. That is hope, Mama said. Little Mole and his mamma scurried along the edge of the woods until they came to Mr. Rabbit's garden. An old brown flower pot was lying on its side in the soil. Under the rim, something small and shriveled was hanging. It's dead, Mama, said Little Mole. No, my dear, whispered Mama softly. This chrysalis is not dead. One day soon, the butterfly growing inside will burst out of her shell. She will spread her wings and fly free among the flowers. Close your eyes, Little Mole, said Mama. Can you see her dancing in the wind? Yes, Mama, cried Little Mole. I see her, I see her. That is hope, Mama said. Little Mole and his Mama went home. I had a wonderful day today, Mama, Little Mole said happily. Now I know that there's always hope even in the darkest places. Mama smiled as she tucked Little Mole into bed, pulled his quilt up under his chin, and kissed him good night. And Little Mole closed his eyes and fell fast asleep, dreaming of yellow daffodils, green trees, and beautiful butterflies dancing together in the wind. So ends the story. I want to invite Maisie up to light our lantern, and Sterling and Nell to come get the baskets to collect donations for Dorothy Day Hospitality House. If you have non-perishable food donations, please hold them in the air so the children can come around. The baskets are up here. There you go. And we'll sing together this little light of mine.
Light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning. Invite you to take a deep breath, settle into your seat, let your spirit catch up with your body or your body catch up with your spirit, whichever one needs to do which. Be present to yourself and the community around you, and let silence speak to you for a moment. Reverend Michelle Collins says, "We hold in our hearts the weight of a world where justice feels perpetually deferred. and wonder if our small efforts matter against such towering forces of harm. Yet we also see the persistent hope of those who refuse to surrender. Activists who show up year after year, teachers who believe in their students, neighbors who care for their neighbors. And in their stubborn commitments to what is right, we find that our own hope is renewed. May we understand that hope and action are partners, that our hope must have hands, our prayers must have feet. May our lives become letters of hope written to future generations, proof that some believed another world was possible and worked to make it happen. Every Sunday when we gather and we share milestones, it's one of the ways we continue to generate hope within ourselves and among each other in the community. We share our celebrations and we share what's hurting us, and therefore we have more people celebrating with us and more people helping us to carry what's hard. And when we feel supported like that, I think it's easier to keep a sense of hope about us. So again, this morning, I'll invite you to share milestones. We'll begin with people who would like to share milestones silently by placing a stone. And if that's where you're at this morning, I invite you to come forward and do so. This past Monday, I was honored to give the benediction at the swearing-in ceremony of all the newly elected officials in the city of Meriden, Connecticut. Got a number of calls from newly elected city councilors and some other folks asking then to call from the city, and I was happy to go. And it was a really hopeful evening, because every single one of those newly elected officials shares our Unitarian Universalist values. Not one candidate who doesn't share our values was elected. And the only city officials remaining in the city of Meriden who don't share our values, the only reason they're still there is they weren't on the ballot, because it wasn't their turn for their slot in the council or the committee or whatever to be up. And the night was just full of smiles. The room and the people who made up the teams and committees and the city council and the school committee and everybody, it looked like the city of Meriden. There were white men and men of color. There were white women and women of color. There were straight people and queer people. It was amazing. And I think it was just part of the general optimism that I think happened in the wake of elections last month around the country, where virtually almost everywhere, people who oppose our values lost. And that's got to brighten things up a little bit. And I felt it. I don't know if you felt it. But that stuff didn't just happen. Everybody didn't wake up on that Tuesday and just show up and decide, oh, we're sick of fascism now. It took a lot of work on behalf of a lot of people to talk to other people, to knock on doors, to make phone calls. And that work was done. And I know some of you were involved in similar work. And I know over the last few months, many of you, along with millions of other people, went to protests and demonstrations and built solidarity and awareness. Because change doesn't just happen. And your protest and your voice and your action, it builds and builds and builds and generates more hope that things are possible in others, and they act, and so on and so on and so on. Hope is what we do. Hope is love in action. Hope is possibility made real through real work by real people in the real world. And this approach to hope is very Unitarian Universalist, because as we say, we are a faith of deeds and not creeds. That we're not so concerned as much with what you believe or what you think as what it leads you to do, how it leads you to act and live in the world. And strangely, almost counterintuitively perhaps, real hope is at least in part generated by its opposite of hopelessness. Cuban-American theologian Miguel de la Torre has a book called Embracing Hopelessness, in which he offers a theology of hopelessness. And he says, all too often, hope becomes an excuse not to deal with the reality of injustice. For those struggling to survive, the truth remains that destitution and death await many of the disenfranchised. Regardless of the optimism professed, the disenfranchised and their children and their children's children will more than likely continue to live in an ever-expanding poverty and injustice. So de la Torre's work reminds us that all too often, hope gets conflated with and defined by this sense of optimism. And often a baseless, unsupported by the facts claim that things will just turn around somehow, will just be better. And in this manner, hope is all too often thought of as just wishful thinking. Thoughts and prayers that things will change. And I think we know that thoughts and prayers, as valid as they can be for what they might inspire us to do, I think, aren't enough. That on their own, they don't change our reality. Thoughts and prayers don't end apartheid or genocide. Thoughts and prayers don't end famine and hunger. They don't end disease. They don't end school shootings. Action does. Doing something does. Hope has to be what we do. Theologian Minister Cody Sanders says that he believes the growing sense of hope that is rising in the world and the kind of way hope is being discussed in theology and philosophy these days, he says, he calls it feral hope, hope that's gone out into the wild and come back and gotten domesticated and gone back out in the wild. He says, in cultivating leaders for the future church, there may be no more important and no more fraught theological idea than that of hope, especially in an era punctuated by collapse. The collapse of the climate, of supply chain, of economic stability, of democracy, of public health, and even of religious institutions. And he points out in his work that in biblical stories, hope is an integral part of exile and disenfranchisement. Hope is part of the Exodus story. It's part of the captivity in Babylon of the Jewish people. But it leads to hopeful texts and encouragement. In the Christian scriptures, that whole story is told in the context of an oppressive Roman regime. And it's a story of hope. He says the fact that we have theologized hope outside of this context of captivity and domination and despair has resulted in the very notion of hope itself becoming captive to the ideologies of empire and then domesticated. It'll all be better someday in heaven. Capitalism picks this up. It'll all be better someday when you retire. But De La Torre and others argue that this hope is domesticated hope. It's just a sense of optimism that sometimes isn't justified at all. Rose-colored glasses. Everything will turn out for the good. Where De La Torre generates a theology of hopelessness, Sanders calls it a feral hope. Hope that returns to its wild roots connected to the fight against injustice and oppression. Austin Channing Brown says that for white people, hope is optimism, but for Black people, hope is duty. There's an obligation, she says, to not give up, to not allow yourself to be part of the reason why future generations won't have it better. You're not allowed to give up, because if you do, you may break the chain. You may deny those who come next their fair chance at life as it could and should be. One of my favorite developments in thinking about hope recently, a companion to a theology of hopelessness and feral hope, and what Austin Channing Brown says as duty, is something called hope punk. I hope you read the comment this month because there's much more detail in there, but hope punk was coined by Alexandra Rowland, who's a sci-fi fantasy author, in a blog post about 10 years ago. It went very viral, and she said, the opposite of grimdark is hope punk. Pass it on. If you don't know what grimdark is, that's a subgenre of sci-fi where everything is dystopian and nihilistic and immoral and violent. There are no heroes in those stories. Even the protagonists are people you don't like. It's A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones or The Sopranos or something like that. And she says the opposite is hope punk. Hope punk is Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and The Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a good thing, Red, maybe even the best of things. That's hope punk. There's a debate to whether hope punk is actually a genre of sci-fi, but it's certainly a meme, certainly a vibe, certainly a trope. And I think it works well with the idea of the theology of hopelessness and the feral hope, and hope is duty. Rowland says, hope punk is the refutation of the glass is half empty, lazy nihilism. She says, hope punk says, no, don't accept that. The glass is half full. Yeah, we're all a messy mix of good and bad and flaws and virtues, and we've all been mean and petty and cruel at times. But, and this is the important part, but we've also been soft and forgiving and kind. Hope punk says that kindness and softness don't equal weakness. That in this world of brutal cynicism and nihilism, being kind is a political act. Compassion is an act of rebellion. It's so punk. If real hope is what we do, hope punk is that connection to attitude, determination, courage that hope requires to take action. In 1986, Václav Havel was asked if he thought there was hope in the 1980s. And he said, well, hope is a state of mind, not a state of the world. It's an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It transcends the world that it is immediately experienced and gets anchored somewhere beyond its horizons. We anchor our hope, our ability to take action in that courage, that persistence, that resilience, in something quite often outside of ourselves. That's what I hear him say. Hope, in this deep and powerful sense, is not the same thing as things just going well or a willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously going to succeed, but rather the ability to work for something because it is good, because it's the right thing to do, regardless of whether or not it stands a chance to succeed. The more dire the situation in which we demonstrate hope, the deeper our hope is, and the stronger our work needs to be. And because hope is a way we orient our approach to the work of making things better, it's a practice. The more we do it, the more hopeful we become, the more likely we are to act, and so on, and so on, and so on. Because hope is what we do. We take action. It makes the justice and the oppression and the cruelty less likely, and it makes the taking action for justice and the compassion more likely. It helps us be courageous and take action again and again and again and again. In this way, hope regenerates itself. So if hope is what we do, are we hopeful? Yeah, we are. So this is how hopeful we are. If you're not sure that we're full of hope and that hope is justified, this is hope just here at UUCD. It's a lot. We have a green team whose purpose is to keep in front of us our responsibility for the sustainability of everything human beings do. And that includes us here at UUCD. That's taking action against a devastating collapse. And the fact that they remind us to do that over and over again and we take concrete steps, that's hope. That's hope being what we do. Recently, a couple of very hardworking people, including a couple people connected to us here at UUCD, got a big grant to get the Connecticut UU Social Justice Ministry off the ground. That's what we do. We do something to give us the ability to do more, to take action against those things that want us to give up. Hope is what we do. We have a team of people who are working to make sure that the land acknowledgement we say on Sunday morning isn't empty words. They're researching, they're meeting with the Puigwesset people, they're looking for ways for us to really connect and build relationship. So that hope isn't wishful thinking that, oh, the Native American situation will be better somehow. It requires relationship building and making amends and real action on behalf of wrong that was done. That's hope being what we do. That's hopeful. That's a hope that's real. We have a Palestine Solidarity Committee. In one of the places in the world that may be the most hopeless, genocide, famine, apartheid, murder, continuously calling us to our Unitarian Universalist history of standing with those, taking the side of those who are oppressed and the victims of injustice. In the face of almost overwhelming odds and opposition, they remind us what we're supposed to do as Unitarian Universalists and take action. And they do. That's hope being what we do. Even something as simple on the surface as our practice of family ministry, centering the needs of parents and families and children and youth, It creates hope, and it's not an easy action to take because caring for children is frequently inconvenient and sometimes annoying. I'm a parent, I get to say this. And it often requires parents and guardians and adults and other people caring for children to sublimate their own needs and desires and preferences in order for what the children need. And sometimes that can be a serious pain in the butt. You know that if you're a parent, but you do it with love because you know that your role is to take care of them. The what you do, how you treat them, how you love, ensures that they have the chance at the life in the future you not only wish for them, but make happen by how you behave and how you treat them and how you love. That's hope being what we do. And this afternoon at 4:00, we're going to raise money for Greater Danbury Unites for Immigrants. Music at the Ridge isn't just a nice concert. First of all, it brings art to our space and our community, which is in itself a way to fight back against the dark. But today, especially connected to Greater Danbury Unites for Immigrants, people in our congregation are doing a lot of work for this group, accompanying people to court on a moment's notice, responding and getting out in the streets of Danbury to note where ICE is, what they're doing. You know, if somebody was ever on the naughty list, it's ICE. So here are the nice list people going out and watching and documenting and helping. We are helping them funnel their funds and use their money. We have people who are doing paperwork that lawyers need so people can have bond hearings and have other things. We have people working to make sure people taken into custody, we know where they are and that they have commissary funds and their families have money and resources to survive without them or to travel to where they may be being sent. People are going around knocking on doors, door to door, like every Saturday this past fall, telling our neighbors what the real deal is with their rights and what's going on. It's an amazing operation. Every time I've done anything with them in the last couple months, it really makes me hopeful. Not just that some magic is going to happen somewhere and this kind of oppression is just going to magically go away, but real grounded hope that there's enough action being taken by enough people who are dedicated enough to win this battle without resorting to the evil of various kinds of violence and deception and lying that the oppressors are using. And all of a sudden, as this holiday season of the winter holidays is coming around, where hope is a big theme, I actually feel hopeful because hope is what we do. Hope is a core tenet of Unitarian Universalist theology. James Luther Adams, one of our famous theologians, says one of the 5 core elements of liberal theology and liberal religion is that we have faith in, or we trust in, the idea that there are enough divine and human resources to justify an attitude of ultimate, if not immediate, optimism. He doesn't just say we should trust that everything will just be better. He says we trust there are enough resources to justify that. We trust that we can do enough to trust that eventually the forces of good and love and kindness and justice win. Things can seem dark at times, And this past year has had its share of those shadows. But there is a way through times like this, a way that defeats the darkness and the fascism and the authoritarianism and the meanness and the cruelty. And we know that that way is centered in love, like our values, and it's about kindness and compassion and doing what's right because it's right. It's about duty to those who come after. It's about getting feral again and undomesticating hope. It's about solidarity with the oppressed. That's punk. Because hope is what we do in the face of pain and suffering and injustice. Hope is what we do in the face of depression and grief and illness and addiction, anything else we struggle with. Hope is what we do when others are being hurt and treated unfairly. Hope is, as Unitarian Universalists, what we do. We're people of deeds, not creeds. And hope is what we do. Hope is what we do.
Please join in the words for extinguishing our flame. We extinguish this flame. Until we are together again. And now please rise and join in our hymn of celebration, which is People Look East, number 226.
People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able. Trim the hearth, set the table. People look east and sing today. Love, the guest is on the way. For a week glad through earth is bare. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish. Trim that course, the flower may flourish. People look east, sing today. Love, the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim. Shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today. Love, the star is on the way.
Our service ends, but our service to the world begins. So don't despair. Choose hope. Trust there are enough resources to justify being optimistic, and then do something. Because hope is what we do.